Morning. Is everybody set? We wanted to come and talk about a very serious issue here in Pinal County that involves violent felons, the most hardened criminals. The largest threat that we face in our community is those criminals who not just steal, say, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, which may be a felony if somebody breaks into your house, but a violent felon, somebody who steals with the threat of force or actually uses force or uses a weapon in the commission of their crime. And we have a number of cases over the past 4 years. Literally, just in 2 years, we have 5,000 cases in 2010 and 2011, where 2 of every 3 violent felons, the most serious criminals, were all that results after our deputies and local police officers arrest these people, these suspects, and bring them to the county attorney. They end up getting either probation or no consequences whatsoever. And we have a number of cases that we're going to outline here today that our deputies, our detectives, our chief wanted to come forward and share these stories and to make them real to you, where we have had deputies assaulted, punched in the face. We have had deputies in fights where they have broken their hand. And we have had deputies in shooting, guns pointed at our deputies, and a shooting, high-speed pursuits. And all that happens to these bad guys, many of them illegals, many of them members of the drug cartel, are the most serious criminals in our community, and they get probation. What does that do to safety in our county? It undermines not just the rule of law, but it emboldens actions by criminals. And how do you think our deputies feel? So I want you to be able to hear from them about specific cases. I did want to start and talk about one particular case that's very recent that has garnered a lot of attention, and it involves Bradley Shaw from Coolidge. Now, this is an individual who has been charged with attempted first-degree murder back when he was 18 years old, has a huge, long rap sheet, has been in prison a couple of times, has been released, has been on all kinds of probation. So this is not a good person, okay? And he moved back into Pinal County, and he is the prime suspect. And I want to qualify, everybody's innocent until they're proven guilty, yet he is the prime suspect in the murder of his wife. And the wife's girlfriend that was brutally beaten with a baseball bat, nearly to death, and believed to be dead. And then the wife was murdered, and her body was dumped south of Coolidge in Picacho Lake. This Bradley Shaw was arrested late last year on a weapons violation. He pulled and pointed a gun at a family member. He should have gone to prison for that not just because he did that, but because he had all these other crimes in the past, serious crimes where he went to prison for. The county attorney took all of those crimes in the past and just wiped them away. And this criminal got probation in March of this year. Here, this Denise Padilla Shaw, I would submit to you, should be alive today. And the other person that was badly beaten with a baseball bat should have never occurred if the county attorney had done his job and prosecuted. And yet we're seeing here is the undermining of the rule of law. And some of these cases here that you're going to hear, when a deputy getting in a fight, suspect fleeing at high rates of speed, and what ends up happening is probation. And I want you to hear in the deputy's words what all happened. I'm going to make some commentary after as well. So first you're going to hear from Deputy Heath Rankin, who's one of our exemplary deputies out there on patrol. His arrest stats are at the top end of our performance. He's received all kinds of awards, even life-saving medals as well. So this is one of our protectors, one of our heroes in the community, who's going to speak to you at this point.
Good morning. I'm Deputy Heath Rankin with the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. I'd like to tell you about an incident that happened in April of 2011. I attempted to conduct a traffic stop for a civil traffic violation. The vehicle fled from me through city streets of Casa Grande at 95 miles an hour. At the end of this pursuit, they didn't stop because they wanted to stop. They stopped because they collided with 2 vehicles that a family was trying to get into. When they collided with that vehicle, poor subjects fled. I gave chase. As I did, I was ordering them at gunpoint to stop, stop, stop. Sheriff's office, stop. They didn't stop. One man, Hilario Gonzalez Solis, stopped because he was cornered. As he did, he saw my gun was pointed at him. He turned around, kind of put his hands up. Okay. I holstered my gun and approached. As soon as I did, he dropped his hands down with clenched fists and took an offensive fighting stance towards me. At that time, we engaged in a fight. My hand got broke. My gun got dislodged from my holster, and I was able to take him into custody. In this vehicle, there was also another undocumented alien, 2 United States citizens, and 400 pounds of marijuana. Okay, this guy, he got possession of marijuana. That was his charge. There was no resisting arrest, no aggravated assault. Possession of marijuana. The same thing as having a dime sack of marijuana in your pocket. This guy had nearly 400 pounds, and he's in the country illegally. The response from the county attorney is that they were surprised that I didn't get charged with aggravated assault for punching this guy in the face. If they'll tell me that, a sworn deputy, what are they going to tell the citizens of Pinal County? You know, they're not going to have my back. How are they going to have your back when you fall victim?
Right. Thanks. And Deputy Rankin was a deputy here before I was elected sheriff, and I know that he and his family, he's about to have a child. And so this is what weighs heavy on my heart, is the fact that we have our men and women who put their own personal safety, their own lives on the line, and here he's in a fight, not just with an illegal, somebody who fled at high rates of speed, smashes into a car, could have killed this young family, and actively fights one of our protectors. And the county attorney lets them off. It emboldens the criminals. If they think that they can fight a deputy, they can flee from the police and nothing happens to them, this is outrageous and has to stop. The second case I want to share involves Deputy Rankin and Deputy Jesus Lopez, who is here as well, and involves an incident in Arizona City where there was a shooting. And I want them to share, if you could just share like what happened, why were you called there, and just relate the incident and what happened, and maybe even at the end, how you feel about this and what's going on.
Right, on August 16th, 2010, myself and Deputy Lopez responded to an unwanted subject/burglary in progress call. The suspect stated Jose Manuel Gonzalez Sandoval. I know him from previous contacts as well as all the other deputies in the area. He's violent. He's personally made threats to myself and other deputies over the phone, and he flees every time we try to catch him. So we know he's a flight risk. We know he's a threat risk to us. We hear this call come in. Myself and Deputy Lopez respond. While we're there, we figure out that, once again, he fled. We were able to locate where he fled to in the residence he went. Myself and Deputy Lopez came up with a plan that I was going to go to the rear, he was going to the front to make contact. I went to the rear because we know he runs, we know he's violent. Okay? We knew he was going to run. As contact's made at the front door, here he comes out the back. I recognize him, I see him, I know him. As soon as I address him, he drops his hand in his waistband, drops down, runs to the front. When he runs to the front of the house, I see him jump over the wall. I yell to my partner, he's coming to the front. As soon as he gets over that wall, I hear gunfire. I sprint around the corner, I see Deputy Lopez engage in a gun battle with Gonzalez Sandoval. I immediately help my partner, draw my weapon, and now there's 2 deputies engaged in a gun battle with this guy, pointing the gun at us, pulling the trigger, trying to manipulate his gun in a residential area at about 6 in the evening on a weekday.
Well, I'm Deputy Jesus Lopez, and when this all first happened, Deputy Rankin explained to me that he might be a possible flight risk, so we were already aware that he might be running. And like you mentioned before, after he jumped the fence, I was already waiting for him in the front of the house. At that point, I engaged in a foot pursuit behind him. I parked my vehicle, I had a truck at the time, in front of another residence in the area, just not to avoid detection while we were approaching him. At that time, while he was running, he ran on one side of the truck, and I ran on the other side of the truck to surprise him. But it came to my surprise that as soon as I cleared my truck, he already had a gun pointed at my chest. To my reaction, I felt like I froze, but I already pulled my gun out and I shot 3 shots at him, and engaged and continued. I can see him pulling the trigger and pulling back and forth on the weapon, trying to manipulate to shoot me. He had some type of malfunction with it, which would probably exactly what saved my life because of his weapon. It malfunctioned. So after that happened, we continued. At that point, Rankin was right next to me. We continued to chase him. As we were chasing him, he turned around and pointed the gun at us again. And at that point, we got involved in the shooting as well. And we continued to pursue him and chase him down through the residence there in Arizona City. As we approached him we saw him at one point. He's behind a vehicle, and we're yelling commands for him to come out. We couldn't see whether he had the gun in front of us and pointed at that time, so we're yelling at him to come out. He did not respond. He continued to flee, and at that point, he was running through so many houses, and people were coming outside. We knew that there was going to be a bigger risk to try to engage this individual, but we needed to find him, so we set up a perimeter to try to find him at that point. Later, he was arrested, but the only thing, to my surprise, after he was arrested and we had him in custody, is that we received a phone call from the county attorney was Harris. It was Ron Harrison that spoke with Deputy Rankin and told him that the attempted murder of 2 officers got reduced down to an attempted aggravated assault, which we were very displeased about, and we wanted to voice this out to pretty much our supervisors, and we did. Deputy Rankin can talk about writing a letter, and we going over it and having it submitted and a review for a better charging at this point. We were very disappointed as far as what was going to happen and what we wanted to happen. I mean, my family was very, when I spoke to them about it, they couldn't understand. It's not very common that a police officer gets in a shootout every time they come to work. You know, we know that there's a big risk that we may we begin in a shootout and may face a lot of dangers, but I know that a lot of officers, and even a 20-year span, they never pulled the trigger or had to get in a firefight. But when we get into a severe type of altercation like this and we have to face it, we're ready for it. We're trained for it. But the one thing that we're not really trained for is how to accept, especially if our county attorney is not accepting and helping us. And we want that kind of support from it. There's no training for that, but luckily we're facing something that our friends and everything have to kind of go by it. That made me feel really unempowered as far as not being able to do and get that full effect and the end result of getting what we wanted it done at that time. I mean, his case being reduced down from a 15-year maximum to a 5-year minimum was really, really disappointing for us, and hopefully that can change in the future for us. I'd like, actually explain about that letter that you wrote and right now.
All right, short and sweet. We get a phone call that says we're going to offer 1 to 3 years for trying to kill us both. I say no. I was displeased. I voiced my displeasure. I let my supervisors know via chain of command. It wasn't until our administration contacted their administration when it changed, and then it suddenly changed from 5 to 7.5, which I was still not happy with. It's like he said, we both have families. I have a small child on the way. I'm getting married. He has a baby. He has a wife. We don't do this just for ourselves. We do it for them. We do it for your families. We do it for all the citizens of Pinal County. But we don't have the support from the county attorney's office, and we need it. The previous incident I spoke about, my hand was broken. I had 2 surgeries, had metal put in my hand. And I don't have any help from them. It's very disheartening.
Right. And to hear that, where's the justice? Not just for victims, citizens that we're charged to protect. Where's the justice for our deputies? For our peace officers who protect our families? And if we can't back up the cops as they fight the most vicious criminals in our communities, why would the county attorney ever care about you and your family? I want to now go to Deputy Bagwell. And Deputy Bagwell is an exemplary deputy who's had a long career. How many years do you have, Scott?
16.
About 16 and a half years. His wife is also one of our exemplary deputies. He has been in the shooting, the shoe handler shooting, and he's the one who shot the 2 suspects. As a lot of cops were running for cover, he grabbed a shotgun and started to shoot underneath the vehicle as a firearms instructor and shot both of the bad guys. This is a man of great courage and puts his life on the line each and every day. And he has a recent story from just a couple of weeks ago that I asked if he'd be willing to share with us today.
Well, as the sheriff said, my name is Deputy Scott Bagwell. The story I wanted to share with you happened on the 25th of this month, and it involves a chase involving a Hummer H2, as you know, a pretty large type vehicle. I was on duty that evening on the side of the highway, and this Hummer actually came up and picked a situation with me, which is not the typical way we start chases, but he comes up behind me, blocks the highway behind me, shuts off his lights and starts revving up his motor. When I turned around to try to contact him, he then tried to ram my patrol vehicle. Luckily, I was able to get out of the way, and a car chase ensued. During that car chase, I countless times this individual slammed on his brakes, reverse direction, trying to ram into my patrol car. Eventually, we came to a point where he pulled over because he was stopped at a locked gate, and instead of giving up at that point, he backed up and rammed my patrol vehicle head on, hard enough to where it pushed my car back out into the highway. My car wasn't disabled, and I went ahead and gave chase again. I was joined by the rest of my squad, which was 3 other deputies at the time, and we chased this individual for over 8 miles, in fact all the way into adjacent county, into Pinal County. The only thing that stopped this guy was we were able to get successful spike deployment on this Hummer. Otherwise, I mean, his vehicle grossly outweighed and outpowered what we were chasing him with. During the course of that pursuit, when he was getting spiked, he came directly at one of my squad mates and attempted to try to run her over. Luckily, she was able to run out of the way. She ran out into the desert off of the highway. It's 16 and a half years of law enforcement. I've been involved in a lot of pursuits. This definitely ranks way up there with one of the most dangerous and violent pursuits I've ever been in. After driving for an additional 3 or 4 miles on rims, he started taking out road signs in the highway, blocking, trying to put obstacles between him and us. And eventually he went into a private drive, got to a point where he had to turn around and come back out on the highway. Myself and another deputy entered the front of the private drive to try to keep him from coming back out onto the highway, where on point he rammed my patrol vehicle again, in fact parking the Hummer on the hood of my car. He was ordered out at gunpoint. Instead of getting out, he stood in the vehicle, turned the headlights off again, started revving up the motor and taunting us by making vulgar gestures, dropping his hands on purpose, just very blatant and vagrant acts. He eventually exited the vehicle, continued to resist, and he had to be brought into custody by use of taser. I really can't even tell you what I felt and what I felt for my deputies at that time, because he literally could have killed any one of us with that vehicle at any point during that pursuit. We brought him into custody. The whole time he was acting as if he really didn't care. He was laughing, just really did not see the seriousness of the event at all. And in the 3 hours that we were with him before we finally were able to take him to the jail after doing drug influence investigation and the rest of the scene investigation, he was telling us repeatedly, "You'll see, nothing's going to happen to me. You'll see, nothing's going to happen to me. I'm an important person. My family's important." Well, 3 days later, after submitting charges to the county attorney's office for 8 felonies and 2 misdemeanors, I found out he was pretty much right. Those charges got reduced to 1 simple count of aggravated assault without the law enforcement enhancement and a count of fleeing from law enforcement. That's it. No criminal damage, no aggravated assault on my fellow squad mates, no reckless driving, no endangerment to the public. He ran 3 cars off the road. If you guys could have seen the looks on those people's faces when we drove by those cars, having narrowly been hit head-on by this Hummer doing close to 100 miles an hour. I wish I could talk to those people now. Actually, I don't wish I could talk to those people now because I would have to tell them that there's absolutely going to be no justice for what happened to them either. I'm beside myself.
Thank you, Scott. The next case I want to share just happened on September 19th of this year. And here's where it's just not out in patrol, it's our jail. We have a secure facility. Some of the biggest liabilities that we have is the care and custody of inmates. We've got to keep everybody safe. Even if they've been convicted or been accused of serious crimes, we've got to keep everybody safe. And we had a terrible assault that just occurred here. And I asked Chief Jim Kimball to come and to talk about that and what this all means if these kind of crimes can go on without any consequences. Chief Kimball.
Good morning. My name is James Kimball. I'm the Deputy Chief for Adult Detention Services for Pinal County Sheriff's Office. As Sheriff explained, September 19th, we had an incident in our secure facility where an inmate, Randall Cross, entered the cell of another inmate who became a victim. Inmate Cross took the inmate out of his bed, severely beat him in the head and torso area to the point that the inmate became unconscious. Because he became concerned now, a trigger went off an inmate Cross. He's like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm facing something different. He actually drugged the inmate down the stairwell and placed the inmate right in front of the entrance to the housing area. Staff noticed this, resources became available, they got the pod locked down, and then attended to this. The Southwest was contacted. They came, made the determination due to the blunt head force trauma that this victim had sustained. They life-flighted him out to Maricopa Medical Center. We did a criminal investigation. One of the detectives assigned to our detention center submitted the charges for aggravated assault to the county attorney's office. One of the assistant county attorneys declined to prosecute. It was actually signed off by a JP who said that there will not be any charges accepted or filed. The question here now is we have a victim, but what type of relief is going to come to that victim? The reason why they declined to prosecute is because they already have a plea agreement in place for inmate Cross. On top of that, there's similar charges that the inmate Cross is facing in Maricopa County. And so they basically, okay, the guy's already locked up. That may be the thought of the community. He's not going to cause any more damage, so why would we want to put him away for a longer period of time? What I would like to ask is, where is the relief to the victim of his violent assault? Thank you.
Right.
And I have pictures also of the injuries of his victim. You can see that his right eye is very swollen. This is the injury to his head area. It was approximately 2.5 inches wide, and it received several staples. And to show you, this is a picture. This is the amount of blood that this victim lost while waiting for staff to respond and the first responders.
Right, and you can understand, imagine in a secure facility that if a plea agreement and there's no consequences here for this criminal, what does this do with all the violent criminals who are in jail, who are in prison, who think that they can just beat the heck out of anybody in prison to the point that he believed that he killed this person? That's why he drug him down to the door to leave him so he wouldn't die and be charged with some more serious crimes. Nothing happened to him. And I can tell you that we have 1,500 inmates in this jail. We cannot allow these sorts of crimes within our facility to take place because it empowers them. There's no consequences. Criminals only respond to a stiff hand of punishment and enforcement by us, and they need justice. The next case I want to bring up, we have we have a DUI vehicular manslaughter that's referenced in the case here. There's actually, and here's shows an incompetence in the county attorney's office, and this is customary for Maricopa County, Pima County, where there's a DUI investigation. It's just not impairment by alcohol. There's impairment by drugs. by cocaine, by meth, by all the other illegal substances. Here, somebody was killed in a head-on collision, and the person was clearly impaired. The county attorney, much like the same case with Deputy Rankin, where next to nothing was going to happen until we inserted ourselves and demanded further action. They weren't even going to prosecute this case. Somebody was killed in a wreck, an innocent citizen, when this vehicle passed down near Central Arizona College in a head-on collision, and because they didn't know how to prosecute this case. And we said, we're going to help you through this case, and we have outside help from Maricopa County that will help you. And only then, because of our pressure applied to them, did they prosecute in this case. We have Deputy Taylor. Actually has two cases, and I'm going to ask Deputy Taylor, who has a prior career in Maricopa County Sheriff's Office and detention before he became one of our deputies, not only of an assault against him, but an assault against emergency medical response there, where this criminal punched both him and these other people in the face. And I want you to hear from him what ended up happening.
Hello, my name is Deputy Robert Taylor with the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. The first case I'm going to talk about occurred on August 29, 2010 at approximately 9:40 at night. I responded to a trailer park in Casa Grande to assist paramedics with an unknown medical. Upon our arrival, the subject was passed out in his living room, and as the paramedic went to what's commonly used as a sternum rub to try to wake the patient awoke and struck both the paramedics in the face with a clenched fist. It was at that time that I engaged to assist the paramedics, and me and the subject began our active struggle. We actually went through a glass table and also through an entertainment center in the trailer, along with striking me multiple times in the face during that altercation. The subject was able to get into custody. He was charged with aggravated assault not only on me, but as well as the paramedics. He only received 1 year of probation, and which he was let off that probation early by about 6 months. The last incident I'm going to talk about occurred on January 26th of this year. I received a call about a suspicious vehicle at a convenience store in Arizona City. As I discovered the vehicle, I initiated a traffic stop on the vehicle and continued to flee from me through a residential area for approximately 3 miles. The subject was able to be detained. He was found to have a loaded AK-47 with multiple rounds of ammunition as well. The subject is a known criminal in our area, and he was also arrested for resisting arrest upon his detainment. He only received 1 year of probation, in which he was already on probation for another serious felony crime, but yet they just added on more probation instead of jail time. Just want to reiterate, it's just ridiculous that we have to go through. I mean, going back to Deputy Lopez and Deputy Rankin's shooting case, I've worked with these gentlemen for 4 years now. It's a brotherhood. It's disheartening when you get that phone call that one of your brothers has been involved in a shooting and the outcome that occurred afterwards. I've had numerous contacts with individuals that I've arrested from the valley, such as Phoenix, Chandler, Tempe, where they came out and told me the reason I come do my crimes in Pinal County is because I know nothing's going to happen. I cannot tell you how many times I've been told, like Deputy Bagwell said with his prisoner, nothing's going to happen, and it never does.
Thank you. As you can see, we only do half the job. Even if citizens see a criminal or a suspect getting arrested and they say, right on, finally there's justice, where's the justice when they get released? When our criminals feel empowered when they know that nothing's going to happen to them because there's a lack of prosecution. This is a breakdown in our justice system that has to be fixed. What do you think when you get this attitude? I have 700 full-time employees that work with me and for me in the sheriff's office. When there's an understanding by us, the protectors of our community, that we know that 2 of every 3 violent cases, the worst cases that you can imagine, kidnappings, murder, shooting at a police officer, punching a cop in the face multiple times, and they get probation. How do you think our staff feels that we're not supported? And that's got to change. I have one of our exemplary detectives, Buddy Johnson, who has a case of that's very serious, actually homicide, and he wanted to share about that. How many years do you have on, Buddy?
20 years.
20 years.
Hi, I'm Detective Buddy Johnson with the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. I work in the Homicide Division. On August 10th of 2007, we had a call in Stanfield reference a shooting. When I got the call, they said it was going to be a homicide. When I get there, a white male by the name of Jason Brandenburg was dead in the front yard. We had one of the deputies did a great job, had the suspect in custody after he made a 911 call himself, turning himself in. Our suspect, Duval McCoy, confessed to the entire shooting. Basically what he told us was he was at a party here in Stanfield, and some racial slurs were exchanged between him and the victim. Duval took it upon himself to walk about 4 houses down, get a single shotgun loaded, walk back to the house, and confronted Mr. Brandenburg in the front yard, and point blank rank shot him in the chest with a shotgun. Duval also had counterfeit money with him. He had some marijuana, which was also he was also charged with that. When we spoke with the county attorney's office, they said go ahead and book him for the counterfeit money and the possession of marijuana. I assumed those were going to be charges just to hold him until we were done with the arson. I submitted charges for first-degree murder, and they were declined. Said that Mr. Duval, this was a case of self-defense for him, even though he walked home, got the gun, loaded it, walked back, shot him, and reloaded the gun again. I'm not a victim in this case like the deputies here are, but what makes it different and what makes this case stand out is Mrs. Brandenburg came into our lobby here at the sheriff's office when I had to tell her the case wasn't going to be prosecuted. When she looked at me on her way out the door and pointed her finger at me and said, "You wait till it happens to your family." And I've investigated a lot of homicides since then, but this case sticks out. What are we going to do when it does happen to my family? Is it going to be another case of self-defense and just let go? Duval McCoy should be in jail today. He should be in prison today, not wandering around wherever he is. And absolutely no charges were taken against him.
Well, here in a case like that you can get away with murder in Pinal County. And that should never be not only the message, it should never be, as Deputy Taylor pointed out, that we have criminals that are it's commonly known that if you're smuggling or trading in drugs, come to Pinal County to do the trade. We have brought the heaviest hand of enforcement against the cartels in Arizona, with the largest drug bust in the history of our state. But when we have these deals that are coming to Pinal County specifically, because if you happen to get caught by the cops, that you're only going to get probation. And if there's that understanding by the criminals, there's something wrong here, and it's got to end. You're welcome to ask any of our staff any questions that you have.
Sheriff, real quick, disheartening as it is, part of the judicial system is that you're offered a plea bargain. But in these cases, it seems like there was plea bargains taken. Is that disheartening for your officers? And what do you have to say about that?
Absolutely. That we understand we don't have control over that process. We arrest people on probable cause. And they have the likelihood, not just of conviction, they have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. When you go back in 2011 and 2010, there's 5,000 cases just dealing with the most violent criminals in Pinal County. 5,000 cases. 2 of every 3 of those cases, they only received probation. A third of them were completely dismissed. These are cases where there are indictments, that there's enough evidence to go to trial. Why are we not bringing these cases to trial? And that's a question that must be answered by the county attorney, regardless what answer he gives, whether he says it's politics or not. These are men who protect our community. These are real stories and how they wanted to share how it comes alive to them. I have had deputies and their families come to me and say, "Sheriff, I don't want my son, I don't want my husband to be a cop in Pinal County anymore because of incidents like this." When it gets to that point where it's no longer the finest in our community test for, compete for the opportunity to serve us in law enforcement, there's a high bar for that. And then when they're not backed up, when a criminal, what kind of criminal flees from the cops at 100 miles an hour and then actively fights a deputy and gets to punch a deputy in the face multiple times or point a gun at them or get in a shooting and they get away with it? All that does is it tears down our justice system, because if they can do that to the cops, they can do it to any regular person in our community. And that's where it defies everything that we know is right and just in America, and it's got to come to an end.
Have you asked for an outside agency to come in to investigate the district attorney or the county attorney?
I have talked to the Attorney General about my concerns with the county attorney, and this is America. This is where it comes down to people are elected to these positions. You know, they're the same way the focus that we have brought here to improve service in the sheriff's office, it's up to the voters of our county. People can hire and fire in the private sector and in certain government positions that are appointed, but this is an elected position. The elected leader, the same way that I in the sheriff's office control not only the direction, the focus of enforcement, the county attorney has that the same way in Pinal County. One of the clear ways that, and this is where you see under the current county attorney in Maricopa County with Bill Montgomery, and there are clear parameters that are set in terms of what, we have 40 deputy county attorneys here, that if you have this type of a case, you still have some discretion, but only within this narrow hallway. That you can't give a plea for murder. You can't give a plea for rape. You can't give a plea for shooting at a cop or trying to kill a police officer or actively in a fight and breaking their hand. It's like you've got to hold these people to account. And even if we lose trying to bring them to justice, that gives our deputies the knowledge that somebody has our back, the community has our back, that we will not tolerate this as a community to allow this to happen in Pinal County.
Sheriff, in your opinion, what is going on in the county attorney's office? What is going on there?
Right now, the county attorney is not a prosecutor. He's never prosecuted a case. So you have somebody who's in charge who doesn't know what's going on. And that's the problem here. That somebody is in charge that is not a prosecutor. He's a politician. There's a lot of things that people say about me that I'm very political, and yes, I am very political, but I'm a cop. And I not only went through the academy, graduated at the top of my class, I've chased after bad guys. I've gone into houses and buildings, had to fight people. I've been punched. I've punched people. I've had to use weapons against people. I know what it is that they're going through. And when I hear this, and I'm charged, I've been given this opportunity to be their leader, I will not allow this to happen. That's where it gets my blood boiling mad. And this is where I've told this county attorney face to face. I've sent him scathing, not only emails to document this stuff, every time that we've had to push for further justice for our deputies. Just so there's some consequence for these bad guys. All he gives me back is this blind defense of his staff, because he doesn't know what he's doing. That's the problem.
You said you went to the AG's office. What was the response from him?
That there's an election. He can speak for himself, but there's this election process that we have going on, and that the voters of Pinal County will get to decide. Is this okay? Is this okay? These are real. I'm not making any of this stuff up. Here's the real stories. There's 5,000 cases. And so in the end, it's not Tom Horn's decision. As much as I want it to be my decision, it's the voters of Pinal County. It's their decision of, is this acceptable? And there are countless victims, and a lot of people sometimes come to me and complain, like, oh, this detective, this deputy, how come this is going on, Sheriff? And how could this be that my son or daughter this have been brutally assaulted, or people robbed, guns pointed at them, and nothing happens? And I try to explain to them that we've done all we can, not only to fully investigate, interview witnesses, interview the suspect, gather, collect evidence to bring it forward, but we cannot prosecute. And it's the prosecutor's job to bring justice. And all of these cases, the prosecutor has the power to tie the hands of the judge. But when they bring plea offers before the judge cannot say, no, I want mandatory 5 years of prison. It's up to the prosecutor to do that. And the prosecutor is not a defense attorney. The prosecutor is not some corporate attorney or civil attorney. They work with us in law enforcement. They have to have our back. They have to work to justice, but they have to protect our community. And that right now is obvious to me that they're not doing that. Is there any questions of our deputies that you have? Yes.
You talked about the case with the McCoy and Stanfield. Can you talk about how you said there was no charges brought at all?
That is
How
correct.
did we get to that point?
During Mr. McCoy's interview, it was confession actually, he confessed the whole thing. When he left the shooting location, went to go get the gun, he left his girlfriend there, his pregnant girlfriend. But she was there on her own free will. She didn't follow him, she didn't go with him when he went to go get the gun. And during his statement, during his confession, was that he was afraid for her. That's why he went back and confronted Mr. Brandenburg and shot him. Even though she was in the back partying and like everybody else. And so that's where the self-defense issue came in. He was defending her. Even though she could have left on her own free will.
So this is basically a case where the suspect had a better attorney.
And no, he never saw an attorney. When he was released for his counterfeit and possession of marijuana, I released some personal property back to him. He says, "What do I do?" And I said, "Well, if you want to stay alive, I'd get out of Arizona if I were you." Because he didn't have to see an attorney. He never had to buy one, never got a public defender, because there was no charges.
Good. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.